Channel 8. This is News Talk with Bruce DePoint.
Terrific to be with you on this Monday. Terrific to be back. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being with us today. We begin with politics this time, the race for the White House, and Ted Cruz, who is surging on the eve of a big Republican presidential debate out in Las Vegas. The junior senator from Texas is shaking up the chase for the GOP nomination with robust numbers in the key early voting state of Iowa. Out of the gate today, what is fueling his rise in the polls? What will it take for him to mount a lasting challenge to Donald Trump, the frontrunner till now? And what sort of general election candidate would Cruz be? Reporter Amber Phillips is covering the race for the Washington Post, and she joins us now from the paper's new newsroom and the new newsroom camera downtown, in the heart of downtown. Amber, good to have you with us. Thanks very much for your time this time. It must be an interesting feeling after all those decades in the legendary Washington Post building for you to find yourself, I guess it's pretty close to day one, right, in the new digs?
It feels like the first day of school, really. We're trying to walk around figuring out where's the bathroom, where do I sit, where are these cameras? And so thanks for bearing with us as we have kind of a loud and raucous first day here in the new building, but we love it so far. I'm impressed that you've got the new cameras up and running so early, and yeah. Thank you for being here. It's great having you with us. This race for particularly on the Republican side has been fascinating every step of the way. And Ted Cruz's surge suggests that we are in for just a continual ebb and flow and endless fascination. Can you talk about what is fueling Ted Cruz's recent rise? Yeah, so I would argue, and we at The Fix have argued, that Ted Cruz's recent rise isn't just the latest ebb and flow. It's something he's been working on methodically and very carefully since he got into the race this spring, by every measure that you can measure a candidate with. That's polls, support, money, a clear, consistent message that's resonating with the base this time around. Ted Cruz has it. So it's not surprising to see him 10 points up, according to the Des Moines Register poll, in Iowa against Donald Trump.
Talk about what makes Ted Cruz unique. It seems to me that on the substance of the big issues, he has an identifiable message, and it's not miles apart from the other Republicans seeking the nomination, but he's got a very distinct brand, and certainly, I mentioned the substance, if you will, of his positions, but his style is unique, and that is not limited to his pursuit of the GOP presidential nomination. Since he arrived in this town as a senator from the great state of Texas, he's been very much his own guy, someone we really haven't seen before.
Yeah, he has sort of pioneered how to do, the Tea Party disrupt kind of method of politics at the highest levels. Ted Cruz is definitely arguably the Tea Party's leader right now. We see him in the Senate, leading not technically filibusters, but long talks against the president's health care reform law, Obamacare. He regularly gets into fights and relishes it with his fellow Republicans in the Senate. He talks about the Washington cartel and how we need to take these guys down. So even though, unlike Donald Trump, unlike Ben Carson, unlike Carly Fiorina, he is a politician. He is living and working and getting his paychecks in Washington. He sort of chastises it every second he can, and he does it louder than anybody else, arguably, in the race. And I think that's what's really helped him resonate with voters right now who want nothing to do with the establishment.
Is there more visceral personal dislike for Ted Cruz among people across the political spectrum than you would typically find for, the average Paul?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that statement. I think across the Capitol, among Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats, he's really disliked. They are not a fan of him trying to disrupt what they see as kind of the regular order to governing. They think Ted Cruz is sort of standing in the way for his own political gain. But you know what? Every time the headlines come out of Washington that, Republicans are mad at Ted Cruz for messing up this, or Democrats blame Ted Cruz for shutting down the government, he holds those up when he's campaigning in Iowa and says, look at this, they don't like me. It's a lot like Donald Trump saying, look at the media, they don't like me. That's why you guys should vote for me.
In 2012, we saw a number of candidates shoot to the top of the pack. They had a few days or a week or two leading the polls, and then they would fall back and someone else would take their place, or someone who had led prior would reestablish supremacy. They would retake the #1 position. We won't know for some days or weeks whether Cruz is someone who is truly transforming this race, whether he's about to make a statement in Iowa, whether his momentum from an Iowa win, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but whether he's someone who's making a real move here, or if it's going to be more like the phenomenon of 2012, where seemingly half the field spent at least a few minutes in the top position.
Yeah, and it's no secret. You know, we should point out that Iowa of late in the GOP primary tends to go for the more socially conservative candidate. You have former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum, who are winners of Iowa and then kind of petered out from there. So winning Iowa isn't what it used to be. That being said, you've got to win one of the first 3 states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, to have a shot at this. Ted Cruz not only has a great chance of winning Iowa, he's got money behind him to help carry that momentum, and that's what we're so surprised about. He's sort of fundraising like an establishment Republican, even as he's campaigning as this anti-Washington social conservative.
Your Washington Post colleague, Tom Hamburger, is on the ground in Iowa right now, and he's got a front-page story today talking about the Cruz team's use of data, of big data, to really make a move at this key period as we're getting into another debate, and the holidays are coming. Soon it'll be the first of the year, and the Iowa caucus events will be looming very large. Can you talk about some of the behind-the-scenes techniques that the Cruz people have been using so far with some success? Yeah,
well, they're sort of behind, like taking a step further what President Obama famously did in 2008, which Republicans have been trying to build up ever since they saw Democrats run away with the nomination, in part because of very technical, very pinpointed data on who voters are, not just how often do they vote, but, what events are they going to, how often do they participate in the local city council elections, et cetera, et cetera. Republicans have been trying to build up a database of this size, and Ted Cruz's campaign is engineering that, I think, in the best possible moment right now to create excitement for his campaign that's going to get people actually to that cold February night on February 1st in Iowa to vote for him.
In some of these debates that have already taken place, there have been stretches of 10 and 15 and seemingly even 20 minutes where an individual candidate will vanish into the background and they won't be part of the mix. They won't be heard from. They won't be in the discussion. What impact do you think Cruz's new lead in Iowa will have on tomorrow's big CNN debate in Las Vegas? Do you expect him to be the subject of a lot of attack where other candidates go after him, even if he hasn't said anything right then and there to sort of provoke them?
I do. We asked this very same question about Ben Carson in the last Republican debate, because at the time he was sort of surging, and he had a target on his back. Whether it's a mixture of a not great performance at that debate and some other issues as the campaign is refocused to foreign policy, Ben Carson slipped in the polls since. I think Ted Cruz has that very same target on his back. The difference here is Ted Cruz is a great debater. He's fantastic. He's had his moment in the sun among those 11, 12, 13 candidates at least once or twice every single debate. And I think he is ready to fight. The big question is, how much will Donald Trump attack Ted Cruz? This is a whole new dynamic. The two have sort of had an amicable relationship. I think that's going to be off, and we're going to see a little bit more, kind of Ted Cruz going after Donald Trump and Donald Trump going after Ted Cruz.
In the era of the super PAC, where there is so much money in the system, could candidates go several contests without a win and still be viable because they have money, if not directly in their own coffers, then acting on their behalf?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But super PAC money is not everything. Look at Jeb Bush. The former Florida governor has in total $100 million, unprecedented amount of money between his campaign account and most of it from his super PAC. He's pretty far behind in the polls. You look at former Texas Governor Rick Perry and Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who did pretty well for their super PACs and dropped out before we even had a vote. So it's not everything, but yeah, it could definitely, make a play for a candidate like Chris Christie or Rand Paul, who are on the edges of tomorrow night's debate and in the polls, but think that they can keep going because they've got this support safety net behind them.
We've got about a minute left. What else, Ted Cruz aside, or if you want to talk more about Cruz, of course, that's fine, but what else will you be listening for and watching for tomorrow as 8 or 9 candidates, I apologize, I lost track of the number, as the candidates gather there on the stage in Las Vegas? What are you looking for in terms of folks at the top of the pack, folks looking to make a move and reach the top? What will you, Amber, be watching for?
Yeah, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul has got to have a standout debate performance. He got in to tomorrow night's debate by the skin of his teeth by a last-minute poll. And frankly, he's got to do a lot better in this presidential race if he wants to convince Kentucky voters back home, he's also running for a Senate seat, that he should stay in the presidential race. It's getting to be a harder and harder sell for him, so he's got to have a great night for the sake of his political career, Senator, presidential, or otherwise.
These debates have been interesting viewing so far, to put it mildly, and tomorrow should be no different. Reporter Amber Phillips of the Washington Post. Thanks for joining us. Can't wait to get a tour of the newsroom. We appreciate your time today. We'll talk with you again soon.
Sounds good.
We'll take a quick break here. We're back with more right after this.